Satellite imagery shows a 100-mile scar cut into the Saudi desert, but the cranes are only moving on 1% of it. While the glossy trailers promised a civilization revolution, the bank statements reveal a desperate retreat. After 7 years of stalled vertical ambition at Jeddah Tower, Saudi Arabia is facing a horizontal reality check. Is this 100-mile-long city just the same financial trap turned sideways? Over the past year, the paper trail has shifted. Contracts renegotiated, targets revised, timelines stretched. This isn't about whether NEOM is impressive. It's about why it's being drastically scaled back, and what that tells us about the limits of megaproject economics. But while the world watches the cranes stop on the line, one part of NEOM is moving toward 80% completion, the NEOM Green Hydrogen Project, a massive renewable energy complex set to become the world's largest green ammonia facility. Its progress offers the clearest signal of which parts of NEOM still work on economic terms. Hint: it's now about industrializing the desert, not populating it. But why is this one energy plant succeeding where a trillion-dollar city is failing? In this video, we'll look at why the retreat is happening, what's forcing Saudi Arabia to abandon the city-building fantasy, and why the shift toward industrialization reveals a side of the kingdom the glossy trailers never showed you. The most dramatic evidence is the radical downsizing of the line itself. According to Bloomberg and The Guardian, official targets have been slashed from 170 kilometers to an initial segment of just 2.4 kilometers. To grasp that reduction, picture a structure meant to cross the entire nation of Panama being cut back to roughly the length of Central Park in New York. It's about a half-hour walk. This new goal accounts for less than 1.5% of the originally planned city. If you lived in a city that was only 1.5 miles long, would you actually feel like you were in a civilization revolution or just a high-end gated community? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. But 2.4 kilometers isn't a random number. It's a specific engineering choice that reveals exactly how much cash is left in the vault. And the answer is found in a single, fluctuating commodity price: the price of oil. There is a specific break-even number the kingdom needs for this to work, and right now, the price isn't even close. We'll look at that exact threshold in a moment. It's not just the reduced length of the project, it's the reduction in potential residents that's also shocking. Reports show that population projections for residents of NEOM by 2030 have been slashed from 1.5 million to fewer than 300,000. This isn't just a reduction, it's a fundamental recalibration of expectations. According to internal planning documents, the projected price tag for NEOM's envisioned full build-out had surged to $8.8 trillion, far eclipsing Saudi Arabia's original $500 billion vision and dwarfing the kingdom's annual budget. That's a scale of investment the global market for luxury urban living simply can't match. On the ground, the signals are unmistakable. Contractor testimony points to slowed work and delayed payments, signaling cash flow constraints. International engineering and design firms have cut staff. Satellite imagery reveals that while a trench was dug across the full 170-kilometer route, concentrated construction activity is visible only at the western terminus. The rest remains an empty scar in the desert. The strategic shift is equally telling. Saudi Arabia has moved from build it and they will come to phased, ROI-driven development. This represents a desperate gamble. They aren't building a city anymore. They're building a collection of spectacular monuments, a mega yacht marina, the 46,000-capacity NEOM Stadium, a chandelier hotel, hoping the world will see them and start writing checks. It's a mega construction strategy on steroids. The state is betting these anchor assets will spark organic development around them. But it's also a concession that they cannot simply subsidize an entire city into existence. The question becomes whether spectacular architecture can generate the economic density needed to justify the next phase of construction, or whether these monuments will stand isolated in the desert. Impressive, but not viable economically. This scaling back exposes a critical client gap that Saudi Arabia never publicly addressed. Who can actually afford to live in the world's most advanced AI city? The line presents a residential dilemma. Luxury pricing in a market without organic demand. The projected cost of living far exceeds what Saudi Arabia's emerging middle class can afford. The target demographic is the global ultra-wealthy, people who already have Monaco, Dubai, and Singapore. But here's the deeper problem. The ultra-wealthy aren't just looking for luxury, they're looking for autonomy. NEOM's promise of a 24/7 AI-monitored life, Sensors tracking movements, predictive systems managing daily routines isn't a feature for this demographic. It's a liability. The Line is a surveillance city built for a client base that values privacy above all else. Convincing them to relocate to an unproven city in a remote desert where their every move is digitized and analyzed is a monumental marketing challenge that exceeds the engineering one. Be honest, even if you were incredibly rich, would you trade privacy for a perfectly AI-optimized luxury life? Type privacy or AI in the comments. This problem repeats itself across NEOM's other components. Oxagon, the advanced industrial zone, faces an industrial paradox. It was designed to be the world's largest floating structure, but the engineering required to create a floating industrial complex of this unprecedented scale remains largely theoretical, with no clear plan yet disclosed for how such a structure would actually function. Beyond the technical hurdles, Oxagon asks companies to bet on infrastructure that's years from completion, in a location divorced from established supply chains and trade routes. Without anchor tenants secured before construction, the project risks becoming a massive industrial park with no one to occupy it. Industrial firms need immediate value beyond state subsidies, and convincing them to relocate operations to an unproven desert hub is proving harder than anticipated. Then there's Trojena, the mountain ski resort. Creating and maintaining a year-round ski destination in the Arabian desert requires immense energy expenditure for artificial snow production and climate control systems. This is a boutique experience for the super rich, not a mass-market tourism destination that could sustain broader NEOM development. The 2029 Asian Winter Games have already been postponed indefinitely because the facility won't be ready in time. NEOM has no viable economic model for middle-income residents or businesses. It's either ultra-luxury or state-subsidized infrastructure. There's no organic economic layer in between to create the density and activity that makes cities function. Revenue projections assumed absorption rates that simply don't exist in the Saudi market, or among the global wealthy willing to relocate to the desert. With the Winter Games postponed, NEOM is now racing against a 2034 World Cup deadline they cannot legally miss. If they fail to deliver stadiums and infrastructure for that event, it won't just be a budget issue. It will be a global humiliation that undermines Saudi Arabia's entire Vision 2030 credibility. The client gap leads directly to the subsidy trap. When your target users can't afford the true cost of your city, the state must cover the difference indefinitely. Saudi Arabia is now facing exactly that reality, and the numbers are getting harder to ignore. Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, which manages nearly $1 trillion, can't rely on oil money the way it used to. Instead of spending freely, it's now borrowing to keep projects like NEOM moving. Official financial reports have grown cautious, signaling that this trillion-dollar vision comes with real risks. Contractors are already feeling it. Some report delays in getting paid for their work, showing that cash flow is tighter than expected. In other words, a project designed to reduce the kingdom's dependence on oil still depends on oil money to exist, a contradiction that goes right to the heart of Vision 2030. The math is brutal. Saudi Arabia needs oil at roughly $100 a barrel to balance its national budget. Today, Brent crude is trading between $60 and $70. Every dollar oil drops below that $100 threshold is a billion-dollar hole in NEOM's foundation. With oil prices stuck at these levels, the kingdom must prioritize essential government services and guaranteed international commitments like the 2034 World Cup. NEOM's speculative city building falls lower on that priority list every quarter oil prices remain subdued. The problem is simple. When it costs more to keep a project running than it can realistically earn back, even the government can't make it work. NEOM was supposed to pay off over decades, but those plans relied on oil money that hasn't appeared. The kingdom can't keep pouring billions into a city that isn't generating income, especially when much of that money is borrowed rather than earned. This is what economists call the subsidy trap. The more you spend building something without enough people or businesses to use it, the more money you have to keep throwing in just to keep it alive. Eventually, you hit a point where spending more actually costs more than cutting your losses, even if it means writing off billions already invested. Saudi Arabia seems to have reached that point with much of NEOM. The choice to focus on data centers and AI infrastructure instead of luxury residences sends a clear signal. Projects that can pay their own way are worth more than residential areas that might never attract enough people to survive without constant government support. NEOM isn't the first mega project to hit this wall. Masdar City in Abu Dhabi was dramatically scaled back when demand failed to match its carbon-neutral vision. South Korea's Songdo was built complete but waited years for economic density to follow. Even Dubai's Palm Jumeirah required massive state support and perfect market timing. The pattern is clear. Construction cannot create demand that doesn't organically exist. NEOM's vulnerability is that its unprecedented scale magnifies this challenge exponentially. NEOM's likely path is a cluster of specialized hubs, rather than a continuous city. The Green Hydrogen Project survives because it aligns with export strategy. The rest becomes data centers and AI infrastructure, industrializing the desert, not populating it. Do you think NEOM is the future of urban development, or is it just the world's most expensive construction failure? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to see upcoming videos about other megaprojects. Click here to see our deep dive into the Jeddah Tower.